But it goes into who will not make it into heaven. All right. And um, verse 7 in chapter 21 says, "He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son." And then it goes into a list of sins and people who will not make it. And we have an idea in our head about all. In verse 8, it talks about the murderers and the sorcerers and the idolaters. And we have that in our mind. But the first person, the first category that's not going to be in heaven is the fearful, the cowards. And in our culture today, in our society today, we have to be fully aware of that. The church cannot be the fearful. We cannot be the ones, the second one says, the unbelieving. We can't be that person. We have to take control of our lives and our surroundings and who we are to be and all of that. And that's very important that we figure out who we should stand for, what we should stand for, and those kind of things. And then when we figure that out, not to be the coward, the one that doesn't speak up, the one that doesn't say. And we have to be the ones that deliver the truth. We have to be, because there isn't anybody else who knows the truth. It's only, the truth is Jesus. He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And we have to speak that, because otherwise we are not a light. So that just, while he was praying, and I don't have any idea why that needed to be said today. But, okay, let's go to Malachi. And we this is the tithing verse, the tithing passage. But in verse 10, Malachi 3:10, where it commands us to bring all the tithes into the storehouse, it's the command, and then why is so that there can be supplies, there can be meat in God's house. And then he tells us the results of that, the conditions of that. If we do this, he will do this. So he's talking about the windows of heaven and pouring out a blessing. I want to talk about that first phrase right before the comma in verse 11. It says, "And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes." And it goes on, but I want to talk about the devourer this morning, how God will rebuke the devourer for us, and who the devourer is. We're right when we think that the devourer is the enemy. It is the devil, and he is there. He wants to destroy the fruits of your ground. He wants to ruin things for you. He wants to mess up your future. He wants to do all those things. So God is saying that if we follow his command of stewardship and we bring all the tithes and offering into the house, he will rebuke the devourer. He will rebuke the enemy. Amen. All right? But there's some other nuances to the devourer. And, of course, the devil has something to do with this. But the devourer, the enemy, is also our world and our culture. And if we don't stand, like I just said, if we don't stand, the world and our culture will devour us, everything we have and all. It will set wrong priorities in your life. It will come around the back door, all those kind of things. The enemy will do that. So the enemy is the devil. The enemy is the world and culture. But the third thing, the enemy is you. You can be the devourer. We think God put all of this on us, the tithes and the offerings and all the commands and all that kind of thing, to make it rough on us. But God did not require tithing to make it rough on us. He did it to stop the enemy. That's what he did it for. He put this in place, this design, this blueprint for our lives. And in the very first commandment, in going to beginning of Malachi 3, the very first way we return to God is by tithing. And people skip that a lot, because people say, "How do we return to you?" And he says, by tithes and offerings. That's how it happens, because that's part of your life. You trade most of your life for money. You go, you tell your boss you're going to work for such and such amount for such and such dollars. So this devourer of ourselves is because we're not following that plan. We're not following it. We're not putting ourselves in there. So again, I want to say, I guess probably in closing, God did not require tithing to make it rough on you. He did it to stop the enemy. All right, the enemy, whether it's the devil, the world, culture, or yourself. Right? Okay. Here at the Revival Center, we do receive our tithes and offerings separately, so we will be receiving the tithe now. So stand, and our usher's coming, so we will.